So important is because if you don't practice self-awareness, then you're not aware of your day-to-day life. This is now the new you, and you're trying to be very aware of your thoughts. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me this week. So in this week's video, I wanted to talk about something that has been coming up a lot lately, and I'm getting a lot of questions on it, and it's self-confidence. You know, how do I have more self-confidence? How do I have more self-esteem? How do I start practicing self-love? What is self-love? All of these types of questions. And this video is really about how to change our negative thoughts into positive ones. And the reason why I'm making this video and creating this title, you know, how to change your negative thoughts into positive ones, is because every question that I get in terms of yourself, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-love, starts with self and starts with the things that you're saying to yourself. So if you don't have self-confidence, it could be because of what you're telling yourself. If you don't have self-love and you're not practicing it, or self-esteem or self-worth or self-value, it's because the stories that you're telling yourself day in and day out. So it's really important to hone in on what are the things that you're saying to yourself on a day-to-day basis, and how do we begin to change any kind of negative story that we have going on into a positive story, and how do we believe that story? So the first thing towards changing our negative thoughts into positive ones is you have to practice self-awareness. And practicing self-awareness is not something that can be easy right off the bat, especially if you've always kind of lived on autopilot and you've never really, you know, taken responsibility for your life and your happiness. And, you know, maybe you have had this awakening moment where you're ready to say, you know what? I don't have the life I want, and I'm ready to change things, whether I've gone through a divorce or heartbreak or have dealt with narcissistic abuse or whatever the situation is. It could be a ton of things, but the reality is whatever you're looking for, more self-confidence, self-esteem, a better life, a better job, whatever, it starts with you. And you have to take the responsibility to say, I'm going to make this change happen because it's my responsibility to create the life that I want, not anyone else's. So the reason why self-awareness is so important is because if you don't practice self-awareness, then you're not aware of the thoughts that you're thinking. And when you really begin to start practicing this and make it a part of your day-to-day life, this is now the new you, and you're trying to be very aware of your thoughts. You know, we're not going to always be aware in every single moment in time. Of course, you would be highly enlightened, and good for you if you are. But most of us normal humans are not that enlightened, and so we have to practice this. And when we're able to start practicing self-awareness is when when we're aware of what we're thinking, when we're aware of a situation. And when you're aware of something, you can decide how you want to react to it, what story you want to believe that you're telling yourself. So one of the tools that I always give my clients is put a reminder on your phone a couple times a day, and the reminder just says check in. And when the reminder comes up, check in with how you feel. You know, how are you feeling? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling happy, hopeful? What is the feeling that you're experiencing? And something that it was such an eye-opener for me, and it really started to change my entire life, and it started to create less pain and suffering, was when I realized that I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts. I am the observer of my thoughts. And I know Lisa Ramona says this. She's a great life coach. Definitely go check her out. I believe it's Gary Singer, I think. He talks about this a lot on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah. And I mean, this has been talked about for years and years. This is not like a new phenomenon, but it's the aspect that you are not your thoughts. So your thoughts are in your mind. They're coming from your ego. They're coming from a lot of places. But you, your essence, your soul, yourself is not your thoughts. You have to be able to observe your thoughts to then decipher which thoughts you want to believe. And if a thought is coming up that is a negative thought or a self-limiting thought or just a thought that doesn't help a situation, number one, you have to know that that thought is not you and it's not actually true. So in that moment of hearing that negative thought and knowing that it's not true, you know, sometimes the thought is really convincible. It's your ego, and it is coming at you like a bully, the toughest bully you've ever seen at times, and you have to be able to fight the bully. You have to be able to say, I'm not believing that thought. That thought is actually not true. And the more you don't attach to the thought, the more you don't get wrapped up in that bully talk, the more it actually just passes through you. And you can replace it with something that's positive and uplifting and the truth. We all have two parts of ourselves. We all have our ego part, our false self, that's always giving us that negative stuff, right? It's always judging, and it's always bullying us. It's always giving us that negative self-talk. And then we have the other part of ourself, which is our soul, our essence, which is connected to, God, the universe, source, whatever it is that you want to call it, which is unconditional love. So when those limiting thoughts are coming up of, why would I go up to that person and talk to them? Like, they're not going to like me. Like, I'm this, and this, and all that negative stuff starts coming into play. If you don't know how to shut that up right away, you're going to get involved in that conversation, and then you're going to believe everything that false self or ego is telling you. And that is the trick. The hardest part is nipping it in the butt when it happens. You're never going to be able to fully shut that ego up. You're never going to be able to shut off that false self. It's a part of you. It's in us. It is what it is, and it's never going to shut up. Even, the most enlightened people at times still have self-doubt. They still have points where they don't feel confident in themselves. But the difference between those people that are happy and successful is not that voice never comes up. It's that they know how to shut it up right away and replace it with the truth. And that's the hardest part, and that takes practice. And that's why beginning to just have self-awareness on when those thoughts are coming up is when you're going to be able to nip it in the butt right away. Because when you don't have self-awareness and you're just letting your thoughts kind of take over on a day-to-day basis, you're getting wrapped up in every story that's going across your mind. And we have like thousands upon thousand thoughts that we're thinking, in a minute, essentially. So being able to practice, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Is it something that's serving me? And if it's not, replacing it with something that will. And being able to nip that bully in the butt right away will allow you to start having more self-confidence in yourself. It'll allow you to be able to change those negative thoughts and turn them into positive ones. And the more you do this, it's like any muscle. The more you do this, the easier it gets. So in the beginning, it's going to be tough. It's not an easy thing to do. You're essentially training your mind. You're training a muscle that you've never used before. And when you start practicing self-awareness is when you say, okay, I'm going to pick and choose the thoughts that I want to think. The other thing that I always recommend people to do that are looking to have more self-confidence, and this helps with changing your negative thoughts and turning them into positive ones, is start listening to positive affirmations and start doing meditations. Now, and this is, even Tony Robbins says this, if you don't have 10 or 15 minutes a day to give yourself to do a meditation or listen to a positive affirmation, then that's just like absolutely pathetic. Everyone has that. It's just a matter of, this is another example of self-love. This is another example of you giving yourself that 15 minutes, or if you can 20, great, to give yourself good stuff. Right? You need to always be feeding your mind with stuff that's going to serve you. So if you've always gone on autopilot and you've never practiced self-awareness and now you're ready to take responsibility for your life, you need to feed your mind with stuff that's going to replace all the negative stuff that you've always had in your mind. And the only way to do that, there's multiple ways to do it, but one of the ways that for me worked great, and I know almost every single, coach or guru or anything does it, is meditations and affirmations. And what I always tell clients to do is before you're going to bed, put a headset in. As you're falling asleep, your subconscious is wide open. This is why it's so important to never go to sleep listening to the news, never go to sleep listening to something that's negative and toxic. So as you're falling asleep and your subconscious mind begins to open up, this is when you need to be feeding it with like good stuff. And it's the same thing first thing in the morning. Your mind is not fully conscious yet, right? We're still kind of in that like dazed sleep phase, and we're kind of waking up and getting out of it. And that's when you should be feeding your mind as well. So putting a headset in as you're going to sleep, listen to positive self-love, positive affirmations. There's a ton of free information on YouTube, and you can find the people. I know for me, I only like listening to a group of people that do meditations and affirmations. Their voice for me just like soothes me. But you can find anyone that you kind of vibe with and listen to it as you're going to bed. And those affirmations that you're listening to, whether or not you're aware of it, are getting into your mind. And it's basically replacing all that old stuff and we're putting in new stuff. That's the goal of doing this. And same thing when you wake up. If you wake up and you don't really want to go to the gym and you don't want to work out and you don't want to go to work today, or you just don't want to deal with life in general, listening to an affirmation and doing a meditation is huge. It's absolutely huge. And the more you do it, the more you'll almost get addicted to it, because you'll realize that it makes you feel 10 times better when you do it than if you hadn't done it. So I hope that this has helped you understand that, changing your negative self-talk, it's something that it just takes practice. It's not something that you're going to master. It's something that will get easier over time the more you do it, because like I said, it's a muscle that you're starting to work, and the more you work it, the easier it gets to practice and have in your life. But be really patient with yourself throughout this process, and just know that all of these tools, there's no destination to life. Life is a journey, and we're all learning and evolving and growing and expanding. And this is just another tool for you to use to put away. That way you can start to change those old thoughts and turn them into positive, uplifting ones that allow you to have the self-confidence that you desire. So again, I hope that this has helped everyone. Don't forget to leave any comments below. I love getting all the feedback from you guys, so please keep it coming. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I will see you next week.